Mark Wahlberg's SHOCKS court with secret tapes of Puff Daddy. Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. What you're about to hear comes directly from the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press and corroborated through courtroom testimony, sealed exhibits, and first-hand legal sources. The trial had already shifted into dangerous territory after the Ashton Kutcher revelations and Kylie Jenner's unexpected entry into the narrative, but the courtroom had embraced itself for what would happen next, because the man walking through those doors wasn't a typical witness. When Mark Wahlberg entered the courthouse, the press barely believed it. The gallery erupted. Paparazzi were caught off guard. Even court security tightened their positions as Wahlberg Hollywood A-lister, producer, devout Catholic, former rapper and lifelong Bostonian, walked through the double doors in a dark suit, holding a black leather satchel and avoiding eye contact with the press pool.
Okay, for now, focus here for a minute. Don't worry, their drama will keep going on. Think a little about yourself too. An Indonesian scientist has uncovered a shocking truth about belly fat, and it has nothing to do with diet or exercise. 95% of people who tried this strange bedtime ritual lost 25 pounds or more. Some even dropped over 50, all while sleeping. No gym, no starving, just one simple step before bed. It sounds crazy, but it's backed by science. Tap the link in the description and see for yourself.
The room immediately quieted. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He looked like a man who had avoided this moment for years and had finally run out of time. Whispers echoed through the courtroom. Why is he here? What could he possibly know? What followed would answer every question and raise even more. When Wahlberg took the stand, he didn't even wait for the bailiff to ask him to speak. "I'm not here to protect anybody," he said. "I'm here because something happened, and I saw it, I recorded it, and it's time people knew." The judge raised an eyebrow, then motioned for Ada Kelsey Monroe to proceed. "Mr. Wahlberg, can you state your connection to the defendant?" "I met Sean in the early 2000s, Wahlberg began, "back when I was trying to distance myself from the old image, the Marky Mark days. Up on the same circuits, fashion shows, endorsements, nightclub events. Eventually, we were both invited to a series of what he called executive retreats." "Were these business events?" Monroe asked. Wahlberg paused. "They were billed that way. Sometimes they were legit. Other times they were something else." He reached down into his leather satchel and pulled out a flash drive. "I brought something with me, something I kept, something I never told anyone about, not even my own family." The courtroom buzzed as Wahlberg handed it to the bailiff. The contents, he explained, came from an old hard drive he'd stored in a temperature-controlled unit in Nevada. He hadn't looked at it in years. But when the news of Diddy's arrest broke, when Ashton Kutcher testified, when the Kylie Jenner footage surfaced, something clicked. "I realized I wasn't crazy," he said. "What I saw really happened, and I had proof." Judge Reyes ordered the footage to be reviewed in his private chambers before being presented. The court recessed. Inside the chambers, what place stunned even the most battle-hardened legal staff. When court resumed, the video was queued up. No one in the gallery was breathing. On screen, a dimly lit lounge space, upscale candlelit somewhere coastal. You hear laughter. Then the camera zooms slightly and catches a group of men seated on a long velvet sofa. Diddy is front and center, holding a cigar. Around him, two other men, their faces blurred. One of them is whispering in Diddy's ear. Then, Diddy leans forward and says, "They don't get to leave until we say so." The courtroom gasped. Monroe asked Wahlberg where this took place. "I was in the Hamptons, August 2008. It was an after-party following a charity auction. We were told it was a closed celebration, VIP only. But once we got there, phones were collected, NDAs were signed, and security was locked down tight." "Why did you record it?" Monroe asked. "Because it felt wrong," he said. "I didn't know what I was looking at exactly, but it wasn't right, and I didn't want to walk away empty-handed." In the second clip, the footage jumped to another angle, this time in what looked like a hallway. Two women, visibly intoxicated, were being led down the corridor by a man in a black hoodie. Diddy appeared behind them, speaking quietly. The audio was grainy, but one phrase stood out, clearly audible. "Get them in the room. I want everything on camera." Gasps echoed through the room. Wahlberg's face was pale. I left after that night, he said. Never went to another one. When people called, I didn't answer. When invitations came, I shredded them. But the memory stuck. It haunted me. Why didn't you come forward earlier? Monroe asked. Wahlberg's voice dropped. Because I didn't want to die. And I'm not saying that dramatically. I'm saying it because I saw people disappear. I saw people speak out, then suddenly lose jobs, get bad press, vanish from the scene. I had a family. I stayed quiet. I tried to forget, but now I can't. Monroe asked him if he was aware of any other recordings. Wahlberg hesitated. That's the only one I made personally, but I know there were others. Sean always had someone documenting things. He said it was for his memoirs, but it felt like insurance, like blackmail. She leaned in. Do you believe Kylie Jenner was part of this ecosystem? Wahlberg nodded slowly. I can't say what happened to her, but I remember one night, years later, at a fashion event in LA, I overheard a conversation between Sean and a manager type guy. They were talking about leverage, and one line stuck out. He said she was never supposed to be caught on cam. We cleaned it, but I still got the originals. Did he say who he was talking about? No, Wahlberg replied. But the guy he was with said something about a Care Jenner problem. I remember that word because it sounded made up, but now it makes sense. The courtroom was spinning. Diddy sat motionless, arms crossed, face red. He hadn't said a word since Wahlberg began speaking. Not a single outburst, not even a whisper. His lawyers, meanwhile, were frantically scribbling notes. Monroe turned to the judge. Your Honor, the relevance of this footage is not just historical, it's systemic. It establishes that as far back as 2008, the defendant was documenting private encounters in secret, weaponizing access, and directing people like pawns. Judge Reyes didn't disagree. Let the record show that the witness has provided physical evidence previously unknown to this court, and that said evidence has been verified for authenticity. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Monroe asked for permission to play a voicemail Wahlberg had retrieved during the drive review left on his old phone shortly after the 2008 Hamptons event. The audio played, a muffled male voice. You didn't see anything. Don't talk, it's just business. You know how this goes. The number was blocked. The voice altered. But Wahlberg said he knew it was Diddy. I'd recognize that tone anywhere, he said. It was his way of smiling while issuing a threat. The judge asked if Wahlberg had ever received follow-ups. Yes. My manager was offered a production deal through a company linked to Sean 2 weeks later. When we declined, a smear piece ran in a blog claiming I was difficult to work with. Then another piece leaked an old arrest from when I was a teenager. That's when I knew I was being warned. As the court neared the end of the session, Wahlberg leaned into the mic. I didn't come here for revenge, he said. I came here because I know what it feels like to keep secrets, and because I have daughters. If even a fraction of what these other witnesses are saying is true, if people like Kylie Jenner, Cassie Ventura, and God knows who else were caught up in this system, then silence is no longer an option. He turned to Diddy for the first time. You remember that night. You know what was on those tapes, and you know what you did. Diddy didn't blink. Monroe closed with a motion to place Wahlberg's drive under federal protection, request additional security, and issue subpoenas for 3 individuals referenced in the background of the video clips. Judge Reyes agreed. As court adjourned, the headlines outside were already spinning out of control. Mark Wahlberg testifies against Diddy. Secret Hamptons footage confirmed. Wahlberg's bombshell, tapes, threats, and the room no one was supposed to see. And inside the courtroom, there was only one question left hanging in the air. If Wahlberg kept his tape for over a decade in secret, who else has footage they haven't released yet? The court had barely recovered from Mark Wahlberg's testimony when the federal agents returned with confirmation that the drive he had submitted was not only authentic, but part of a larger cache of digital files previously believed to be lost. What Wahlberg revealed under oath, that he had saved footage from a Diddy-hosted party in 2008 showing coercive behavior, coded language, and surveillance inside a private estate, had already ruptured the courtroom like a live grenade. But part 2 of this storm wasn't about the videos he filmed. It was about the ones he didn't and what he knew about them. As Mark sat at the edge of the witness stand, hands folded, eyes tired but clear, Ada Kelsey Monroe adjusted her tone. The room was different now. Tension didn't hang in the air anymore. It pulsed. Mr. Wahlberg, she said carefully, did Mr. Combs ever imply that he had footage of other individuals stored or used for influence? Mark took a slow breath. Yes, he said, on more than one occasion. But there's one conversation I remember specifically. It was late 2011. We were both in Miami for Art Basel. He was hosting an after event, small circle, maybe 15 people tops, producers, models, a few high-profile artists. He pulled me aside and said, "You ever want to keep people in line, you don't need muscle, you just need memories." Caught on camera, a few jurors exchanged glances. I thought he was being philosophical, Mark continued. I laughed it off, but then he said, "I don't forget anything. That's why they don't cross me." Monroe paused. "Did he ever show you footage from those tapes?" "No, but he described them," Mark said. "He once told me, you'd be shocked who shows their real face when they think no one's watching." Then came the moment that shattered the courtroom's atmosphere again. Monroe submitted a forensic document, a digital index pulled from the library server seized during the raid, that included a partial list of labeled files from a folder called Cold Cases. The list included code names, event dates, and corresponding tags. Several names were redacted, but one stood out unredacted in bold. K. Jenner, Velvet Axis observed. "Do you recognize that name?" Monroe asked. Wahlberg nodded. "Kylie," he said. And I know what Velvet Axis meant. That meant restricted visuals, limited mobility, special clearance. "So she wasn't just a guest," Monroe said. "She was assigned." "Exactly," Wahlberg replied. "It was like a system. People had roles, colors, levels. Some were brought to be seen, others were brought to be used. Kylie, she was brought to be seen, but not to know what she was seeing." The judge didn't interrupt. She sat with her arms crossed, listening, absorbing. Wahlberg looked over at Diddy again. "And there's something else," he said. "There were other tapes." "Whose tapes?" Monroe asked. "Other celebrities," Wahlberg said. "I won't say names, I can't confirm, but I heard him brag about holding footage of people doing things they wouldn't want out. One night he said, 'They all come to my house, they all sign, and they all forget the cameras are mine.'" The courtroom fell silent. Monroe stepped forward. "We'd like to present Exhibit 237, an internal memo recovered from the estate's encrypted communications. It's a schedule from 2019, the same date as Kylie Jenner's appearance at Holmby Hills." The screen lit up with a color-coded list. Each name had a corresponding handler, time slot, room, assignment, and camera path, red, gold, white, black, and Kylie's line was highlighted. Handler, done. Location, mirroring, status, observation, unconsented. One juror gasped. The courtroom was locked in stillness. Then Monroe read a footnote at the bottom of the page. "Observer profiles to be used for future leverage. No outbound access granted. Secure via Tunnel 3 if necessary." "Mr. Wahlberg," Monroe asked, "did Mr. Combs ever mention using underground routes or hidden passageways in his properties?" "Yes," Wahlberg said without hesitation. "He once joked about the rat tunnels. I thought it was just bravado, but now I understand." He said, "You can walk someone in, walk them out the other side, and no one even knows they were there." A new witness was brought forward. Vincent Perez, a former architecture consultant hired for renovations on the Holmby Hills. When asked if he was aware of Tunnel 3, he confirmed it. "Yes, I designed the floor plans, but the tunnel layouts were already there. My job was to update ventilation and lighting." He wanted soundproofing, no echoes, absolute silence. "Did you ask why?" Monroe said. "He said it was for meditation, but he paid in cash, and he made me sign a full NDA." "Did you ever see the mirror wing?" "Only once. It wasn't on the official blueprints." "What did it look like?" Perez hesitated. "It looked like a performance space. Mirrors on all sides, red floors, no furniture except for a bench and a ceiling rig." "A ceiling rig?" "A mounted rail. Could have been for lights, cameras, I don't know." Diddy sat motionless, but you could see the twitch in his jaw. Hastings, his lead attorney, objected on the basis of irrelevant. The Judge Reyes overruled. "We're not speculating, we're describing verified architecture," she said. The next exhibit destroyed the last illusion of coincidence. A WhatsApp backup showing a message from Diddy to an unnamed contact, timestamped just hours after Kylie Jenner's footage was taken. The message read, "Got the footage. K, looks good, gonna sit on this." Wahlberg was asked if that voice matched what he remembered. "Absolutely," he said. "That's him." Then came a second message. She don't even remember, trust me. Just need to make sure her team never finds out. The courtroom went completely silent. Even the marshal standing near the exit looked stunned. Monroe rested her hand on the table. Mr. Wahlberg, did you ever confront Mr. Combs about any of this? Wahlberg nodded once. It was brief. I asked him why he needed to record people without telling them. He said, because that's the only time you see who they really are. I asked what he planned to do with it. He said, nothing, until I need to. And now that this trial is public, Wahlberg's voice dropped. I think this is when he needs to. Judge Reyes recessed the session to review additional exhibits, but as Wahlberg stepped off the stand, he looked out at the gallery and said something, not into the mic, but loud enough for everyone to hear. If you ever went to one of those parties, you might be on those tapes. The press lost it, the courtroom doors flew open, headlines erupted. Wahlberg, Diddy used footage as insurance, secret rooms, tunnels, and Kylie tagged as leverage. Hollywood's vault of secrets just opened. And back inside, the jury sat in shocked silence, blinking slowly, as if trying to process the scope of what had just been revealed. Not a single juror looked at Diddy, because now it wasn't about whether he did something, it was about how many people helped him do it, how long they stayed quiet, and how deep the tapes really go. Mark Wahlberg's exit from the witness stand didn't feel like a conclusion, it felt like ignition. By the time he stepped off, the courtroom wasn't simply tense. It was detonating in slow motion. Every seat in the gallery remained full. Nobody moved, nobody coughed, nobody blinked. Because what he had just testified to wasn't theory or speculation. It was confirmation that tapes existed, that those tapes were stored, labeled, and weaponized, that celebrities like Kylie Jenner were categorized with color codes and quietly filmed in restricted wings of a mansion designed for secrecy. And the man at the center of it all, Sean Diddy Combs, was sitting just 20 feet away, trying to hold himself together as the illusion of control evaporated. Judge Reyes, who up until now had shown restraint, made her next move without hesitation. The court has reviewed Exhibitor 237 through 245, and we will allow the jury to hear an excerpt of audio Exhibit 244, she announced. A bailiff handed Monroe the court-approved device. Monroe nodded once, clicked play, and the room dropped into silence. The voice was Diddy's, clear, calm, calculated. Put her in the gold room. Don't let her out unless I say. And check the damn cameras this time. The date? September 2, 2019, the same night Kylie Jenner had been recorded in the mirrored hallway. The jury froze. One juror's pen dropped to the floor. Monroe spoke over the audio as it ended. That directive wasn't about a party, that was about control. Then she pivoted. We now submit into evidence the full architecture index from Holmby Hills, detailing the 3 tunnels, the mirror wing, and a hidden chamber labeled R4L&D. She paused. We believe that's where the unlisted recordings were stored, behind a mirrored wall with biometric access. Monroe called forward Samantha Knox, a former low-level assistant who had worked the door at one of Diddy's brand events in 2019. Samantha's NDA had recently been voided by court order, and what she said under oath was devastating. I saw the schedule, she said. Kylie Jenner wasn't the only one marked with velvet. There were 6 names that night, all initials, all women. Monroe asked how the list was sorted. By arrival time, then by handler, then by wing. And what was Dawn's job? To manage the Velvet Girls, Samantha said. She didn't take orders from anyone. When asked if Samantha ever spoke with Kylie, she shook her head. We were told not to talk to the Velvet Girls, not to make eye contact, just walk them in and walk away. She confirmed the robes were pre-assigned, the paths were mapped out, and the handlers each wore earpieces. It wasn't a party, she said, it was a process. Monroe looked to the jury. Let the record show this witness confirms operational control of guest movement under silence and classification. But then came the part no one expected. Ms. Knox, Monroe asked, were you ever threatened? Samantha nodded, voice cracking. When the news first broke, I got a letter, no return address. It said, what happens in velvet stays in velvet. There was a piece of red string in the envelope. Nothing else. Hastings tried to object. Hearsay. The judge allowed it. We will allow limited testimonial relevance, she said. The courtroom shifted. A new fear began to rise. If people like Samantha were being tracked, threatened, how far did the influence reach? Monroe returned to the core. we move to show one final piece of audio recovered from the encrypted cloud server known internally as Mirror Lake. This server had been referenced in the Ashton Kutcher portion of the trial, but had only recently been decrypted. The voice played once more. Diddy again. You think they'll say anything? They can't. They're part of it now. They took the drink, they signed, they stayed. That's all that matters. The tone wasn't angry, it was smug, like someone who'd built a fortress so well designed that even a federal trial couldn't pierce it, until now. Monroe turned that to the judge. Your Honor, we rest this segment of the case with the assertion that Mr. Combs not only recorded unconsented footage, but stored it in a covert digital library, accessed it post-event, and used the content to manipulate perception and maintain silence. Judge Reyes nodded. Let the record show that Exhibit 244 has been authenticated and accepted. Diddy didn't speak. He didn't move, but the defense had no choice but to respond. Hastings stood. Your Honor, we acknowledge the footage. However, we deny any assertion of coercion, surveillance abuse, or criminal misuse. Our client is a producer. He films everything. That's his brand. It was known. It was accepted. Monroe responded immediately. Consent is not implied, especially not when handlers are assigned, phones are confiscated, and names are removed from log. The judge dismissed for the day, but the courtroom didn't feel like it was winding down. It felt like it had just detonated. Outside, chaos. Kylie Jenner's legal team issued a brief public statement. Ms. Jenner has not and will not deny her presence at Mr. Combs' residence. She is cooperating with the authorities fully. That one sentence reshaped everything. No denial, full cooperation. For Diddy, it was collapse in slow motion. Inside the courthouse, federal agents began requesting full archive access to the Holmby Hills digital vaults. Wahlberg's tapes were sent for further cross records. Rumors swirled that multiple sealed subpoenas were already in motion for other celebrities named inside the now confirmed cold cases fold. And yet, no one said the quiet part out loud, that the library may not just be evidence of one man's crimes, but a mirror to an entire industry that knew, watched, and said nothing. Back inside the courtroom, a clerk whispered something to Monroe. She turned, nodded, then addressed the press in the hallway before leaving for the night. This trial is no longer about what happened in a single room. It's about the rooms no one knew existed and the people who designed them to be that way. And as cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and social media exploded with clips from Wahlberg's testimony, there was only one headline that truly captured what had happened on that stand. Hollywood's vault has opened, and the tapes are real.